overall, I do think that the economy does play a large part of it, but also too the lack of the example of what healthy relationships are supposed to look like.
Mhm.
Not
Yeah.
giving our children, moving forward, we need to give our children that knowledge of discernment, understanding what a team, how to work with other people, and also to encourage them to be in healthy relationships.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to another episode of the Let's Rock podcast. I am your co-host, Philosophical.
I'm your co-host Jay Ecko. What's good?
What's going on, y'all? What's going on? As you can see, we have two illustrious guests here. This is different for us, very different. We're doing things a little differently. Welcome, you guys. The Blueprint Family Jewels. The hosts Rob and D. Their Instagram is, of course, Blueprint Family Jewels. Their YouTube is also Blueprint Family Jewels, and their show is Monday through Friday on YouTube and Instagram. How you guys doing?
We're doing good. Thank you for having
Good,
us.
good.
I wanted
Thank
to say,
you.
what's up to the Blueprint family out there. Thank you all.
Yeah, no worries. Well, how y'all doing? How y'all doing to the Blueprint family also? So
What?
pretty much how we guys met, you guys is it was almost like a moment because we had joked when you guys reached out to us. I was getting ready to reach out to you guys about being on the show. So definitely thank you guys for taking the time out with us and really uh being on the show today.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, definitely. So tell us a little bit about yourselves. How the podcast started, how you guys got to where you are today, the journey. Let's speak on it.
Well, that was just it's kind of like a support thing, our community service for the community, along with wifeconomics.com, my
Okay.
7-week implementation program where I mentor women who want to be wives. So, and actually, the whole concept came from, well, basically, with Blueprint Family Jewels, just came from the wanting to spread knowledge and awareness and actually provide solutions for what we consider a very devastating problem that our community is facing, and that's loneliness and the lack of being able to connect and have families. So yeah.
Right. And then also too, we saw the need for trying to keep married people married.
Yes.
With the statistics of divorce and the increasing rate of divorce, and then also too the lowering of the uh, successful marriage rates. So that was something that we wanted to also try to fight against. If
Yeah.
there's nothing out there that is trying to, you know, basically keep people together. So me and my wife thought that that would be a great niche to actually try to fill in
Yeah.
and take on that challenge of wanting to lower those statistics.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Also, another statistic is single parent. Single parents out there. So
Mhm.
that is the ultimate goal, is actually taking care of the children, making sure these,
Mhm.
our generations moving forward have a blueprint of actually understanding the importance of staying together. And
Mhm.
it's not just only because of the husband and the wife, but also staying together to raise viable offspring, children who are able to actually grow up to be, healthy citizens in their neighborhoods and communities, and ultimately that will change the nation, the current nation that we live in.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you mentioned that as far as really keeping not only people together as far as stable marriages and stable relationships. That's kind of what the premise of our podcast has been, really encouraging men to really make choices in their lives as far as choosing a partner, right?
Right.
Choosing some of the decision making, some of the choices we're making, right? And I think a lot of it, and we'll speak about it in a few minutes. I feel like a lot of our men are making choices, and we're going to get into it in a few minutes, making choices to kind of choosing to be alone,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's kind of reasons and decisions for that I do want to kind of dive deep into. So let's get into you guys are married, right? And
Yeah.
there's a lot of community. I'm married also, as far as like
I'm
let
not.
let let well,
Yeah.
and you'll get there, Jay.
I'll be
So
you.
let's speak about the marriage journey, about how you guys' first perspective on marriage. What does it mean? Um, I know for me, um, I wanted to get married at a young age, right? But at that age, I didn't quite understand what it took to find a partner, right? So
Mhm.
I do, when I hear a lot of our brothers and a lot of our sisters kind of go through bad relationships to kind of get to a certain goal of that is marriage, I do have sympathy. Let's first talk about that, right? What is marriage
Yeah.
to you guys?
Well, first, marriage to us, you have to want to have the intention on being married and
Yeah.
wanting that intention, like you
Mhm.
as a young man, you wanted to be married.
Mhm.
And another thing, what that entails is being wanting to be of service to somebody else other than yourself.
Mhm.
And that's just the fact of the situation. You got to want to also be of service to someone who's also supportive to you, and vice versa. So that
Okay.
is one of the building blocks of the initiation of marriage.
Mhm.
And like I said before, the intent has to be there. That this was something that I did not understand until I met my wife. That
Okay.
what intention was, and I just thought that people just ended up together, and
Yep.
whatever circumstance or situation brought those people together. They just decided on being married. But no, from my experience, I was intentional on being married first before we got married.
Okay.
So, or before we ever got into a relationship at that. Um,
Okay.
and and that's what brought us into the marriage mindset,
Yeah.
especially for men. Because I
Mhm.
don't think a lot of men, due to the fact of young men not having their fathers in their lives or seeing an example of what a healthy marriage looks like.
Mhm.
um you know th- Often at times we may not know that what the intention is, or also wanting to be of service to someone, so, or what
Mhm.
that looks like. So that's what we wanted to do. And what we realized together, that that's what we needed to have as a goal first before we move forward and actually started building.
Okay.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, that's so true. Yeah, that was my favorite part too. Of kind of the whole idea is even at a young age, for me in particular, I was very young when I knew like, oh,
Hmm.
I want to be a wife. Like, so it got me to thinking, what is that? What does that mean? Because like you said, like once you kind of set that intention, the mind will naturally go to trying to figure out how to get it done and how to, especially at a young age where it's more malleable. So the
Mhm.
imagination will go and you'll think, well,
Yep.
how can I get that to, go? So that's big. And usually what you see is it's not destiny, but more so the intentionality aligning up
Right.
where you have two people that, you know, at some point I do believe God plays a huge proponent in it
Hmm.
because
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
me, I always say when I first met him, it was a breath of fresh air for me. It was genuinely like I felt like I met God. Like God was presenting himself to me in a love form, a vessel through which he could, you know, be with me. Like, cause I didn't really have family. I didn't know what, so I longed for something that I never had. And I knew I had to be deliberate because, my mom, she struggled with mental disease my whole life. But her creative outlet to keep her episodes at bay was being able to set up debutante societies. She would go along to different churches, and young girl me was going along with her. And for your viewers who aren't aware of debutante societies, back then it was kind of like a social opportunity where the high echelon elite communities, the families would come together and introduce their women, and there are young girls that were turning into women going into marrying age. And so it would be a ball where the families would come together and mingle and be like, well, my son's going to do this and my daughter's going to do this, and like, oh, like we would be great coming together to do this. So it was, but in the course of it, the women were learning the social aspect of how to look pretty, how to have manners, how to
Like table
etiquette.
etiquette.
Yeah, all of that was included. So I naturally learned that side. But seeing my mom, she struggled with the actual aspect of understanding men and how to live harmoniously with them. And that's what she kind of struggled with everybody. But that made that spark and tension in my mind, like, oh, what do men like? What are, what does it take to be a wife? Well, let me get to know what a husband is, So it sent me on that journey of understanding men and what it meant to be a wife and how to do this. So that was kind of how we led into it. But ultimately, we met in college, and with us already in that ideology of, okay, marriage is to be of service and to help, we were naturally young and we're like, okay, let's help each other. Let's now, we graduated and it's like, let's now like build. And so that's how
Right.
we got here.
And
I like
speaking on
that.
the intentional part, I
Okay.
actually put a solicitation out on Facebook for a wife. I really was.
Mhm.
I had came out of a bad relationship. And me and Dion knew each other before that relationship that I was
Okay.
in. And a
Okay.
friend of mine told me, "Hey, man, I see you looking for a wife. What about Dion? You know." And me and Dion were in a relationship prior to, as well, and it didn't work out. But I knew that she was very supportive. She was very feminine. And when my friend said that, I said, well, yeah, I will give it a try with the intention of actually wanting to be together.
Yeah, because we met young.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have any, but prior to that, I didn't have any intentions at all on being married.
Okay.
And like I said,
Okay.
it was because of my lack of seeing what a healthy marriage actually looks like. Like, my father, me and my father have a wonderful relationship now, but he I did not, see him after I turned 8. Between 8 and 18, I didn't see him consistently. Um, so I saw him before I was 8, and then me and him built a great, wonderful relationship when I turned 18 and moved to college. So, and still then I was still trying to figure out what are the characteristics of a man, trying to figure out my identity. And then ultimately, I got tired of being alone and being in these relationships that didn't amount to anything, or just being a player pretty much.
Yeah.
And then I got serious about wanting to find a wife. And so that's how me and Dion really, I considered wanting to date her and actually put that intention there
Mhm.
on actually making things work.
Man.
I have a what's it called? I have a semi. It's a related question.
Mhm.
So you talk about intention, but you also talk about wanting to be alone, and I mean, well, not wanting to be alone and everything like that. So my question is, do you, as you said, there's being married is a very unselfish thing, and it seems
Mhm.
like these days one of the things that I'm hearing at least is that there's a lot of selfishness between partners, whether it's man or woman or whatever the case may be. So my question to you is, do you think that loneliness is causing people to be selfish, or the other way around? People are selfish and so they end up alone.
I think, to be honest with you, when it comes to relationships, and if you look at it statistically, a lot of this stuff has to deal with, one, the economy, the lack of funds that actually keep people away from each other.
Mm,
That's what I believe, and also the statistical data that I've seen in this day and age, but also too, not seeing that working relationship between a man and a woman, a healthy working relationship between a man and a woman. I think that's actually what's keeping people selfish, and ultimately is what keeping them alone.
Yeah,
okay.
that fear.
Yeah, the fear
Yeah, I
of
think
all
it's a
of
lot
that.
of
Okay.
fear too, I would have to say, because if you don't see, it's like the fear of the unknown. And then
Mhm.
you've already been hurt. So a part of you is just like, oh no, especially if, I mean, we can't downplay the trauma that our society just has in general when it comes to not only actual things that you experience as a person, but just listening to the stories and the experiences of other
Yeah.
people, your family, and all of that. You take that in. And
Mm,
when you do, and you are raised up in an environment that you're fearful of, you're less likely to take chances on, that better, because your self-esteem is low, because you're like, oh, well, why me? It didn't happen
Yeah.
for this person or
Yeah.
that person. And then you don't have the motivation. Like, being in a relationship, you really have to be self-motivated to make it work, because a partner can't, your spouse is not going to be able to work with you if you can't motivate yourself to want to work with them too. It's like, not being able to have a relationship at all. So
Yep.
that's, to me, the part that really keeps people apart. And we can't downplay how scary fear can be. It'll
Mhm.
Yeah.
cripple you.
I will add to that. You said some very key word, which is intention, which is a very big word
Yeah.
on the show. I hear you, Rob, said, you went into the relationship with D with the intention of marrying someone. So my question is, do you feel like a lot of our men, and you can kind of chime in on this too, D, do you feel like also on a woman's perspective, when a man understands his intention and where he wants to take a relationship, a woman, do you feel like that relationship is easier? Intention brings some sort of direction, right?
Right.
And women depend on our men to be leaders. So do you feel like if a man has great intention, that he can lead, a woman can trust to the point where he can lead? Do you feel that's what's missing in some of our men relationships, women?
Yeah, intention. So with that, I do believe that. Well, I know that for men, um,
Mhm.
uh, what intention entails is also what are your boundaries. So what do you expect marriage life to look like with real expectations? what
Okay.
what roles are you all actually going to fulfill in
Okay.
the marriage? What strengths are you all playing with? What is your game plan as far as getting to where you want to go? Where's your marriage vision? What is your marriage vision, and what does that look like ultimately in the end? And what I mean in the end is retirement. We all get
Yeah.
married, and ultimately, you know next steps, owning a home, having children, but what about retirement as well? So those are all things that you have to be intentional about. So the roles of a man, yes, I want to be the provider and the protector of my household. I want to be the breadwinner, the sole owner of that, and for my wife to also support me in my goals, and also me being supportive of her, and wanting to protect her, and then also understand and show empathy towards her and be supportive of her and her feelings. Um,
Okay.
so that's what as far as intention, that's what that is what I think that men need to you know pro- um talk about in the beginnings of their relationships when they approach somebody, is the barriers. Talk about what you're willing to stand for and what type of woman you're wanting to have in your life, and see if that person fits that mold, because that will save you a separation or a divorce in the end.
Yep.
Just being mature enough to actually address and ask these questions, and then also um also, and as the man himself, you have to hold those things intentional that you said that you're going to do, be the provider and protector, and then you all have to work as a team to actually achieve those goals. So, or either
Okay.
if the man doesn't want to, work, then you all better figure out a way to raise that woman up as far as the finances, and you're going to be stay at home daddy or whatever the case may be. But that's not necessarily something that I would do, to be honest with
Okay.
you.
Or
Okay.
recommend.
Yeah, or recommend it at all.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
times has changed, things
Oh,
are
yeah.
different. You got to play to your strengths. You really do. Because the whole thing about it is that one thing that I preach is that we don't, on average, people don't make a lot. So you
Mhm.
all have to strategize, and that's one of the top three reasons why people get divorced, is because of finances.
Hmm.
And if you can lower those statistics and try to work together as far as finance goes, then I think that you will knock that one out the way. And then you have to worry about infidelity, and then
And
it
irreconcilable
yeah,
differences.
irreconcilable
We said
differences.
that's communication.
Right. And that's a lot
That's
that
all
has to
that
deal with
is.
Yeah.
communication and working as a team together.
Yeah.
So if you can knock those two out, then you're on your
Mhm.
way to a long, lifelong partnership with your wife and
Yeah.
husband. So
Right.
yeah, so that's what I mean about being intentional. We don't
Okay.
get this information being raised by single parents. Often at
Correct.
times, to be honest with you, our fathers didn't get this information either, because
Nope.
I spoke with my stepfather, and then he told me what your relationship sounded like this back in the 50s and 60s. or 70s, how many women you got? How many women girlfriends you talking to?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And that's throughout time, and that's something that we need to stop. Those are not the conversations we need to have with our youth today.
Mhm.
We need to ask, talk to them about intention, setting
yeah,
goals. What are your
yeah,
barriers? What are your, what type of role do you want to have in your relationship with your spouse? Those are the type of conversations we need to be having, not condoning infidelity or
yeah,
Right.
having multiple partners.
Yeah, and lack
yeah.
of discipline.
Lack of discipline. There
Yeah,
you
and
go.
Like a
structure, because that's what marriage really
structure.
does.
I
Yeah, that
mean,
structure.
yeah.
Mhm.
Being married, I think it's more disciplined, it's structure.
Mhm.
I think so. It brings up a good question I want to ask you, D. Right? Is you hearing Rob say that, right? Do you feel like, because I feel like a lot of times I do hear that a lot from men, right? But in a way that's like not as serious, they're not as disciplined, directionless, from a hurt place, from a place of maybe trying to build themselves up. So when you hear that, right, as a woman, how does that make you feel? And like, what do you say to women who necessarily have a different opinion on that?
Well, I personally think when I hear that, to me, that's what a husband sounded like. So, me with
Mm-hmm.
the intention of wanting to be a wife, that's what gave me that safe space to know, okay, this is a man with that vision. He is looking to get married. So, it's safer because I often hear women say, that's a risk, it's risky. Well, it's safer
Mm,
to take that risk, if that's how you want to look at it, on a man who has those qualities that are going to probably keep you all going in the right direction versus investing in someone who has the bad qualities that are probably going to bring you down with them. So it's like, which one, to me, I'm look at it more like an investment of being able to, join onto a team that has that, got that structure, that
Discernment.
yeah, that discernment. Yeah,
yeah.
that's really what it is. It's like that discernment. So I mean, it's
He's
much easier,
focused.
but
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
He's
Yeah,
focused.
and
He's focused. Yeah.
yeah.
He's
Mm-hmm,
focused.
exactly.
And yeah, and the thing is that I'm glad you said that. It's because women see, and I know I speak that from experience, because when my wife sees that I'm focused, I'm headed towards somewhere, it brings a certain type of trust. Like it brings a certain type of like intention that he's aiming somewhere, he's going somewhere, he's taking us somewhere. And I feel uh like you said, like the intention is that we as men is that when that type of woman or when that type of man comes along, society is telling us, you know, that person's trying to control us. You know what I mean? This is not the right situation. It disputes a lot of what healthy relationships and what a lot of healthy marriages should be. Because point blank, I think people want to be able to marry someone or be with someone that has already built something. They don't necessarily want to build anything with anybody. So I'm glad you said the intention, and a lot of times we misconstrue intention with common chemistry, right? You got to be, intention is pretty much you guys are aligned and focused on the boundaries and our deal breakers. This is what we're going to stand for. This is not what we're going to stand for. This is where we're going. If we fail, you know what I mean? Because that's probably the next question I'm going to ask is like, there are compromises, right? How do you handle those compromises? How do you handle those disagreements? You know what I mean? So I'm glad you spoke on that. I feel like that needs to be heard a lot more within our marriages, our relationships, especially our men and women.
I
So
I did
go ahead.
I did have a question
Go
for
ahead.
you, D. I mean, you spoke on it a little bit in that, you grew up you grew up in spaces where you were learning certain skills and everything like that. So then my question for you is, Rob spoke about what intention was from a male perspective. So what would you say on the woman's side of things? What would intention from that side of things look like?
Well, that, of course, for me was, like I said, I had to figure out, okay, I got the appearance look part because with knowing simple, having a debutante, knowing the etiquette, knowing manners, knowing how to carry yourself as a woman. Like, that's all fine and dandy. But I realized my mom had all those things. She knew how to look nice. But the core elements was how to get along with a man. She had no idea about. So that for me was what I had my intentions really set on is, okay, I got to understand if I'm wanting to be a wife, I have to understand who I'm being a wife to. So what do men desire? What does a wife look like? What are the roles of the wife? And actually seeing this play out in different relationships, different, dynamics, because it's shown. The thing about nature is the male and the female natural nature is going to interact very similarly in all different, styles of relationship. Now, of course, ulterior motives come into play, but usually you're going to play to those strengths of the man being, masculine in his energy and, carrying his way, carrying himself in that way. And so what is the feminine's way? How is the feminine going to come in and blend with this so that, you can be that yin and that yang and actually mending together? So what did that look like? Our day-to-day structure. What do men expect from women? Of course, the most common thing you just listening around is, being agreeable, being someone that's a team player, being actually receptive. That's one thing that we're pushing a lot now for women to understand, that if you want a man in his leadership, you have to learn how to be receptive. A lot of what we see within society is like a no, a pushback. You want to fight against something because maybe you've always had to fight, but that's not that feminine nature in a relationship with a man. You don't want to fight with him. That's not your goal. You're not looking to compete. I think our generation in particular, with that 90s, I was born in 92, so I'm a little young in my little age here, but with the wisdom of what I've learned, like that, our generation during that period was raised to compete with men so much. Independent women, anything you can do, I can do better. You got to do this. You got to keep up. I don't want no scrubs. Like, all of that is that competition mindset of, I can do this. So what you got? And that's not conducive to a healthy relationship. So knowing how to be that team player and actually learning, what that is. Of course, that's going to look a little different with all men because every man is going to have his own path. But like I said, the general core elements of what it really takes to be a good woman and a supportive feminine asset to a man is something that you can learn. And that's what I love to offer within the Wife Economics course, because the baseline of that femininity, of what that divine order looked like and the role that the woman plays as a helpmate, how to actually do that. 80% of our marriages are filed by women. And divorces, sorry. Thank you. And I honestly believe that rate is that way because women aren't given that support on how to work through, those difficult troubleshooting problems, like actually being able to solve those issues that come into your relationships and not just checking out on irreconcilable differences. It's like you're not knowing how to use your femininity and your feminine energy, which it has nothing to do really with your outer appearance. It's much more about your kindness, your meekness, your forgivingness, your openness, your receptivity. Yeah, that's who you are. That's naturally like your intrinsic value that is like embedded in us. That's why a woman's clock of wanting to have kids, goes off at a certain time. It's like one of those. You naturally want to learn to be a wife to a man. So, yeah.
So do you think, okay, so you mentioned kind of the way it was in the 90s, right? And I'm glad you mentioned that. So what do you feel like it's like today? Same thing, or it's
that on steroids?
okay.
I think it has 2.0 it now. I thought they was on to something then. We was a little receptivity of the whole idea of, okay, girl, get your, go on, take care of yourself. I think when we first were introduced to the idea, that's kind of what even families latched on to, teaching their daughters how to go out there and take care of themselves. Rightfully so, right? You have to learn to be an adult. And so I understand that aspect. But it's like, are you willing to play that position? Is that the choice that you want to play your whole life? Because being in a marriage is more about that dependence of working together, like into you depending on me, I'm depending on you, like, and we're fulfilling each other in that dynamic. So if you're thinking so much in an independent mindset, it's going to be really hard for you to try to blend with another person's reality, because that's what you're trying to do.
So on your end, Rob, same question, but on the man's front. What are your opinion on that today? Men today.
Okay.
So in retrospect to 2023 today, right? What are your thoughts as far as men, as far as the intention with being a husband, boyfriends? In my opinion, I think a lot of men are considering kind of staying by themselves more long term.
Mhm.
Uh, so what are your thoughts on men in retrospect to that today?
Okay. Well, yeah, I think that more so now that, like you were saying, that men are more so not getting married. It's on both fronts. Men and women are
Yeah.
not getting married, and a lot of my friends are single still.
Okay.
I am 36. I was born in '87, so I grew up in the '90s, where, like my wife was saying, that the competition of men and women was getting fierce. Like the thing that she was talking about, anything I can do, anything you can do, I can do better. The whole Michael Jordan, me and Ham commercial,
Oh yeah.
and
Yeah.
and then sparking that into women started getting more college degrees, and men are working trades, and then also
Yeah.
too less men are graduating from college and vice versa. So it now and today it culminated into competition, of course.
Hmm.
Not to beat that
Yeah.
drum up too much, but also too, like you were saying, your father worked a lot. A lot of our generation had to go through a lot of trying times, as
Yeah.
far as coming out of the '80s and and drugs and things like that, and
Yep.
and then those people, those parents being raised, our parents, going through that era, and then we are the product of the children of the '70s and the '60s, and then their free love era and all the things that were going on there, and then so you got us being raised through um you know i- the hip hop era, where it's ignited
Yeah.
much of our culture and what we actually do and what we say, and we carry that into our intentions of what relationships supposed to look like.
Mhm.
So ultimately, now you're in 2023. After all of that has been going on, drugs and music and being raised by the television,
Hmm.
And
men and
social
women,
media.
yeah, social media now is an aspect
Yeah.
of that. So
Yep.
now what it looks like for men is that um, it's hard to find a woman who's intentional about wanting to actually be a wife.
Yeah, they're not
And
highlighted.
yeah, they're not
Mhm.
highlighted. We don't see those healthy examples of what relationships and marriage is supposed to look like,
Mhm.
and what in a healthy way.
Mhm.
So for men, I can see why a lot of my friends are not married, and they're in their mid 30s, and they're just working, and um as far as careers go, some of them are excelling in careers, and then also too the females in our age group are also it's almost the same as if they're married to their jobs as
Mhm.
Yep.
well.
Yep.
So everyone is isolating ourselves. We're isolating ourselves, being
Mhm.
selfish, and we're not wanting to actually work as a team and coexist. Now
Yeah.
there's it's becoming very fewer as time goes on. Like in the '80s, I would say even in the '80s, much of us were still marrying in our early 20s. And in the '90s, it became in '90s and 2000s, it became the mid 20s, and now we're 30. Both
Mhm.
men
Yep.
and women are the average age is now 30. So that popular dynamic is how in the past of traditional relationships, what that used to look like has definitely changed today. And men
Mhm.
are being more calculative.
Yeah.
I think we're being more calculative and
Mhm.
strategic about
Yeah.
dating and marriage. I think we are still marrying and dating
Mhm.
because we're still marrying at the 30. But
Mhm.
what that speaks also to, like I said, the barometer of that I'm looking at is the economy.
Mhm.
Inflation is consistently going up, and through those times, wages are not going up at all. 90% of Americans are still making average wages, pretty much. And that is hard to build a family off of. I mean, when
Yeah.
you got people telling people messages on social media to not have children. If you are
Yep.
trying to get married, then get married, but not have children, because you're not going to have enough money to do anything.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of people, like my wife, saying that the fear has stricken people to not want to get married or hold off on marriage to the point to where they're not. We're seeing it. And then, 10 years from now, what does marriage rates and the age of marriage going to look like? People getting married in their 40s, 50s? Is
Yeah.
that going to be the average age of married couples? Or,
Right.
to the point to where women are, postmenopausal when they can't have children.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So, the United States already now has a declining population for
Yeah.
the first time, and that I could ever think of.
Yeah.
So that is the
The same
detriment of
across
what's
the world.
going on. Yeah, that is the detriment of what's going on, and overall, I do think that the economy does play a large part of it, but also too the lack of the example of what healthy relationships are supposed to look like. Not
Yeah.
giving our children, moving forward, we need to give our children that knowledge of discernment, understanding what a team, how to work with other people, and also to encourage them to be in healthy relationships, but also to encourage our boys to be. And I'm sorry if I'm carrying this too far, but
No,
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 you're
no.
good. You're good.
This is what they need to hear, because I'm
yeah,
getting ready to interject into something and you may not like it.
okay. But also
You may
too,
not like it.
but also to to finish my thought, to tell our boys that, hey, you need to be raised to be a provider and a protector, not a player.
Yeah.
So, and also to our daughters to be, also understand that honey, you're going to be wanting to get married one day, and it's going to be in your best interest, the fact that it takes a two-person household income in order to raise a family.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
and that's kind of hard statistically for you to do on your own. So you have to get her to understand that, and and instill those principles in her early. So
I will say this, and we'll kind of move on to the next question.
okay.
I think one of the problems is you guys brought up intention. And I think what happens is, and it's on both fronts. Men go into dating with a certain intention, and when that intention isn't met, men have two choices. They either can say, "Hey, this isn't going to work for me," and kind of go back to the drawing board and find what they're looking for. Or I think what's happening today in 2023 is men are compromising. Men are kind of suppressing their intention to fit what the situation is, because they don't want to feel alone. There are men out there in their mid-30s that feel like, I don't want to be by myself. You know, I need this.
Hmm.
Desperation plays a part, and
Right. Yeah.
they're dating women who are also searching and looking for men on how to teach them or how to be a wife. Men can't do that,
Right.
right? Men need to go into dating and relationships and marriage with the intention of finding a woman who is not only knows how to be a wife, carries herself like a wife, but is open to learning more. And that's my opinion, right? And you
Mhm.
guys can interject it if you disagree. I would love to hear in the comments if you guys disagree. But this is what I'm seeing. I think a lot of men are compromising, they're suppressing, and they're compromising on their intentions
I
to on this. So I love to hear you guys' thoughts on this.
so I have that's not what I'm seeing. I'm seeing
Okay.
that men are just opting out entirely. Like they're just
Mhm.
not participating anymore. That's what
You
I'm
think
seeing.
so? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think a lot of men aren't participating in it. They're like, hey, I'm not finding what I'm looking for, so I'm just not going to participate. And then they end up, well, one, they're not intentional, and so they don't know what they're looking for. So they go in and they just were like, they realize, oh, I'm not seeing anything. But they haven't, like you said, they haven't been intentional about setting their boundaries, setting their desires, anything like that.
Yeah.
And they keep jumping into things thinking, oh, I'll know it when I see it. And
Well, that's the compromise. That's the
Right.
compromise when they're
okay,
jumping
all
into
right,
different relationships.
okay,
Right. Um. Well, yeah, that goes into the strategy portion that I was talking about as well. But the
Okay.
thing is that, you know, marriage is a compromise.
hmm
So, but the thing
Yeah.
is that
Yeah.
is that something that is a good compromise for you? Is it beneficial to you, or are you just compromising because you're lonely and you just take whoever that comes across your path and say, you know what, we spent a lot of time together, we might as well just go ahead and get married.
Right.
Um, you know,
and,
so
and it is going on. That is what's going on.
right. But
Yeah.
that's that is the emotional aspect of wanting to get married. Marriage is also a business. Now, does it make sense business wise for you to get married?
Yeah.
If that's the type of mindset that you have, what do you have to lose? Maybe a man who doesn't have anything to lose, he can say that, we've been together for about, 5 years. Hey, we do is spend time to each other. You don't check all the boxes. You check 1 out of 3, but hey, you don't want to
That's a
work on the
problem.
other 2. Might
That's
as
a
well.
problem. That's a
Right,
problem.
it is a problem. It
That's
is
a
a problem.
problem. Yeah, because
Right, but
if
that's
you feel
that.
like you don't have anything to lose, right? That means you're not having anything to build.
Right, exactly.
or
That's a
the
problem.
confidence to do it.
Right.
And you got to
Yeah.
have that confidence. Yeah.
So one of the thing is this: you can cover yourself and protect yourself from these bad decisions that you make. That's
Okay.
only if the spouse or the woman is wanting to make this type of commitment with you. Other than a marriage certificate as a document, you can also have a prenuptial agreement. So a
Okay.
prenup, if you're one of these guys out there, I would encourage you all to get prenuptial agreements, because that would be a clear barometer in the beginning before you waste a lot of your time and money on whether you are going to make it or not. So if that woman you've been spending time with for 5 years agrees also to, hey, I don't check all your boxes, but I'm willing to be with you, and let's sit down together and draft a prenuptial agreement.
That's a hard conversation.
It is
That's
because
a hard conversation.
right. But the reason being it's so hard is because one person feels like we don't understand prenuptial agreements, and it comes out of ignorance.
Correct.
And I work under contracts. I'm a procurement manager, and I work for a public I work for a public retirement finance agency. I work in contracts all day. You should not sign a contract where you cannot agree on something. It's okay to walk away, and that's the art of negotiating. Now the thing is if that both of you all can negotiate a prenuptial agreement, and the fact that you all can sign that prenup, then that's either a win-win or a lose-lose for both of you all, and you're fine with that. But I'm
Okay.
gonna tell you, this is gonna be cheaper than getting a divorce later on. And also, too, you will lay everything out. Those are your barriers. Those are your barriers that you're gonna put out there in the beginning to let your spouse know that, hey, if I do such and such and such and such, you get this. If you do such and such and such and such, I get this, or I don't get nothing, or whatever you all agreed to. People need to stop thinking of prenuptial agreements like somebody is just getting ran over and not getting nothing in return. So one person is just doing whatever they want to do, and they just get out. But why would you sign something like that? You get what I'm saying? Why would you sign an agreement where you get nothing at all?
Well,
And
some
then
people
go ahead.
that type of that people. I'm going to give you the. Sorry to cut you off, but I'm going to give you the reason they signed that agreement is that's the desperation part about it, right? They're willing to give up whatever they can to get the title, to not feel the loneliness. If I may not get it this chance again, right? If I don't marry this person, this particular person, they may not check all your boxes, but who's to say my chance at marriage again could happen down the road?
Yeah.
So
I
they're
think
willing.
that's risky. Those
Yeah.
emotional decisions, like he was saying, because you
Correct.
can't,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to something like marriage. I think a man in particular has to be now more than ever prepared to take on that role. And that's, mentally, physically, you got to have your finances and all of that. You got to be able to take on those roles, because women, like we were talking about with the whole idea of women not being raised to be wives anymore, because of that, if you want to have a wife, you need to be able to have a larger pool of women to be able to pick from, so that you can make the best choice for your life. I don't
Yep.
think marriage is something that you just enter because you're lonely. That emotional decision will wreck your life if you do it
Yep.
like that. So,
It will.
like,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
having a prenup to go along, like that's especially if you are, like my husband's saying, one of those guys where you have worked yourself up, you've built yourself up, and then you decide to marry a woman. If you're going to take that risk and you don't know for sure if she's going to offer you all you need for a lifetime, then yeah, go the prenup
Yeah.
route for sure, because at least it's
Yeah.
going to allow you some layer of protection for a system that is not set up to protect men anymore,
Right.
especially now more than ever.
So,
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
have
Florida, they're getting better with that. You remember Florida? I'm sorry, but Florida would pass
no.
the law for or
No, they
wanting
were
to.
wanting to
Oh, okay, to get
get
rid
rid of
of.
it.
they didn't.
Oh,
They didn't sign it yet.
it didn't go in
Yeah,
yet.
No,
It
they
didn't
didn't sign
pass
it.
yet.
it's
So
fine.
then I have keep moving this discussion forward. Then my question to you guys is, then what is especially in this era when men and women are believing that they don't need one another, what is the incentive to get married then?
Oh, but you do. That's the illusion that I think they have pushed so
Okay.
much on our society, because
Okay.
to retire in general, you need to make a two-person household. So whether you're a man or a woman, you have to be making a two-person household to sustain yourself till you pass away, which now statistically we're living longer. I mean, it's going a little bit away because of other diseases on the rise, but statistically you live much longer than your 60s. You're going into your 80s, your 90s.
95.
Yeah, 95 to
From
sustain yourself.
right. So,
Yep.
like I said, I work in retirement, and retirement finance. So what they're telling people, and this is going to be more common now, is that retirement also involves what your IRA, if you have one, your Social Security, or some sort of 401k plan, which is, they call it a three-legged stool.
Yeah.
Now it's a four-legged stool, and that involves a part-time job.
Side
Who
hustle.
wants to work? Who wants to
Side
work?
hustle.
Yeah, who wants to work when they're, be a Walmart greeter until the age of 65 to 95?
Or teacher. That's now
Right,
because teachers are it's so many, jobs available for teachers. They're encouraging the retired force to go back to be a teacher, to help
right.
fill those
So
gaps.
they're
Yep.
trying to get the
Yep.
baby boomers back into the workforce. So with that being said, there is no retirement. So what are you going to do on with your average income and the increasing rate of inflation?
Yeah.
That's one thing. You need to figure out how to work as a team in order to shield yourself from ultimately, homelessness, or
Right.
having to go without in
Right.
the
Yep.
future.
Right.
Or who's to say that Social Security is still going to be there?
Yep.
Mhm.
So I
And
don't,
that's been talks of that going away.
exactly. And
Exactly.
then with
Yeah.
these new taxes that's coming out, they're trying to take 17,500 out of Social Security for individuals.
Yep.
So they're already reducing it. So with that income being wiped out, you're going to have to go back into the workforce, baby boomers. They're going to have to go back in there unless they don't have what at right now have like $2.5 million stashed away that they're going to use up
So they're drawing from.
from
Yep.
from 65 to 95, whether they have a lot of medication to take, the growing rate of groceries and gasoline or whatever they use to drive to get to their appointments, and then the food that they eat, and taxes and bills and all these other things that's out here.
Right. And then if
Not
I
it,
may
not
add,
all, and also put in perspective of you being parents.
Right,
You
exactly.
got to provide for your family.
Right,
You're
yeah.
not even putting in there, having children.
right,
Yeah, but if you're a single person in general, you have to think of are you being single for the rest of your life to where you have to take in health? Now you're looking at, are you going to be able to actually sustain your own health even
Yep.
if you were to fall ill? Because if you're not, you're going to have to pay for somebody to come and help you
Yep.
if you fall ill with the
Yep.
rises of diseases and stuff going on. So all of this has to be, you're not meant to be alone. We're not meant to be alone. Regardless of what they try to kick it to us and make it look nice, sure, that selfish ideology, the way you see your life and your reality, sure, you may think that it's sustainable for a long time, but realistically it's not. And life is fast, life moves pretty fast, so before you know it, you'll be 60 with the knee problem, and then you
Yep.
having issues walking.
diabetes,
Yeah, and
Yep.
heart
then
Yep.
disease.
you might have to retire early and draw from disability, and you don't get your whole income from disability. That's
Yeah.
like, I don't know how much you get from that, but unfortunately you don't.
Like
And
70 to
Sitting at
60%.
home by yourself.
Right,
exactly,
Sitting at home by
exactly,
yourself. Yeah. You
exactly.
don't have any of that to share it with.
And I think
And
that's our
yeah.
problem in our community is we're not forward thinkers like we need to be. Like, you can't just make decisions on right now and expect these right now decisions, because life is continuously changing. You
Yeah.
have to be able to adapt and move forward, and that's easier working as a team, not by yourself.
I will add to that. I think we as men we've catching ourselves in the moment of, man, I got a great career, I'm making good money. And I think we're starting to detach ourselves to where, in a selfish mentality, to where I don't have to share this with a woman. I don't have to spend a lot of money on the woman. I don't have to pay for her attention. I don't have to, and now men are considering not having children for the same
Yeah.
reasons. For
Mhm.
the same reasons, when we as men were brought here to reproduce, to build on our legacy, right?
Right.
And
Ouch.
it's crazy. It's crazy because for me, one of the main things of me wanting a child is that, man, I really want to be able to change the thoughts of how I want him to grow up as a man, right? Not always work, 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 but always have a sense of responsibility, have a sense of intention to where, you know, I want you to have a wife one day. I want you to be a father one day, right? Not just look at me and see me as like, well, my father was a player. My father didn't, treat his wife the right way, so I'm going to do the same thing. No,
Hmm.
and that's the problem, right? We as men, we're seeing our fathers by the way we were treated, the way they're treating women, the way I treated our mothers, and it's being replicated.
Right.
And I do feel like we're killing marriages. We're killing it. And especially now, we're seeing a lot of, like I just said it, seeing the way our fathers treated our mothers in marriages. We're replicating that being married to a good woman, and we mess it up,
Hmm.
and that's why the divorce rate is so high, the marriage rate is declining. I think, and you can respond to this, D, to where our women are probably seeing this and probably putting so much work into this marriage and trying to be a good wife that they're probably saying, I don't want to do this again. I can't trust a man. I can't do that. I can't go through that. So I'm gonna make my own. I'm gonna create my own career. I'm gonna do what's best for me. And I don't think men are liking this, right? Because
I don't
men
think
don't.
any, I don't think anybody likes the current status quo, but I don't think anybody's knows how to change the situation. Or if they do know how to change the situation, they're not willing to do the work to change the situation. I
I
think
think it
that's
comes from trust. Trust.
fair, but
You gotta trust. You gotta trust that your partner isn't the same person that you've dealt with before.
yeah, I mean, I've had this conversation with women I work with and with men I've worked with, and it's just like, I mean, like we've been saying, we grew up in the 80s and 90s. We came up with a certain understanding of the social contract, so to speak. Like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, this is what it's supposed to look like. This is your role in it. This is her role in it, and this is how it's supposed to look. And because of because of times, economics, social movements, all of that sort of stuff, the social contract has changed without us necessarily playing an active role in negotiating the new terms, so to
Hmm.
speak. So, the contract changed from out under us, and nobody's negotiating their own terms. So it's just like, okay, I saw this on social media. This is what it's supposed to look like.
Yep. Yep.
Meanwhile, it doesn't work for you, and you go with it because you're like you said, the conversation about prenuptial agreements. It's a hard conversation to have.
Yep.
It's not the sexy conversation.
Right.
So I'm just not going to have the conversation because, oh, well, it'll work out. Meanwhile, 10, 20, 30, 40 years down the line, you're now single and you're paying somebody else 50% of your salary. And like you said, you got to retire in 4 or 5 months, and now you're a Walmart greeter.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah. So my next question is, in you guys' opinion, what's appropriate age to get married?
Well, the appropriate age, to be honest with you, for a man. So my understanding is different between men and women.
Okay. Yeah, I
So
agree. Yep.
right. So for men, to be honest with you, whenever you are able to, one, afford a house, that's a big thing. Have your own car, and then you have to make sure that your salary is enough to provide, if you want to have children, to provide for the amount of children that you want to have. And then also, um, for women, so there isn't really an age for men. If I would say so, in this day and age, it would be in your 30s. It will be in your 30s, because that's normally when you actually, if you are in a career that's lateral, then that is mostly when you are actually have all that money saved up, where you're living comfortably, you're paying your bills. You're mostly probably almost college debt. Your college loans are gone, or
Yeah.
you're almost about to pay those off, so that you can supplement those monies that you was having paying those bills, and invested that back into your family
Mhm.
Yep.
to protect yourself. So it
Yep.
would be in your 30s now.
Okay.
Um,
Are we
and
talking? Are we talking mid 30s, middle 30s? Are we?
I would say the safest would be your mid 30s
Okay.
to be
That's
safe.
kind of what I was thinking, like the 32 to 35 range.
Okay. Yeah, I
And
was
yeah,
thinking 32 to 35. Yeah, 32 to 35.
yeah.
And
What about you, D? What is your perspective on that? What is your age, you think?
I think for men, yeah, y'all are spot on for men for sure, because that's important. In particular, now more than ever, for even a man too, it's important for you to even be able to protect and provide safely, so
Hmm.
that your when I think about children, your woman is able to hopefully be able to raise children and be able to teach them and guide them. So certainly you need to be, at least I would prefer graduated from college for a woman, because I
Mhm.
think by that time she's taken in, some know-how of how to operate within the world, and
Okay.
education to be able to pass on to the child. So I would say like 22, like 21, 22, 23, to where you're really putting yourself in the place of being found. Right,
For
so
okay,
you may
so
not
for a
know where
woman,
you're.
so you're saying for a woman 21 to 24?
Yeah, I would
Wow.
think for
So,
a safe, only in
Wow.
particular,
so then,
because for one, I am a firm advocate of you not getting married and having kids right away, like at the same
Okay.
time. Like, once
Okay.
you've gotten married, take some time to enjoy yourself. You don't want to add in children so fast, because you're already just putting challenges, right? Raising children is a
Yeah.
challenge. And you're just
Yeah.
introducing challenges when you're still trying to get adjusted to the whole marriage life. Like, don't set yourself up like that. So you adequately want to be able to enjoy your husband, get on his program, understand him. I spent a lot of our time just getting to know my husband. Like, before we
Mm.
had children, I think I was 23 when we had our first son. So but
Wow.
we got married when I was 21. So
Okay.
within that time, I was able to, just get to know him. And, I was working and stuff like that, but I was understanding our dynamic, our roles. How did he like the house? How do I like the house? How do I, how can I get comfortable of doing, the day-to-day life for us, and then adding in children and stuff. You don't, if you marry it within like 30 or even like 27, 28, your mind is naturally on, okay, I got to hurry up and have kids. I want to hurry up and have kids. I don't want to have a difficult pregnancy. I don't want to be struggling with this, man and
Wow.
woman,
Okay.
So
I
we
didn't
want
think
to
about it
not
that
bring
way.
yeah.
that.
Cause
So,
I was thinking 25 to 29. Cause you brought up a good point. You brought up a good point. Like, women should graduate college, figure out kind of career wise. And that was another question I was gonna ask. And then really understanding and learning your husband, and also being in tune of being a mother, potential mother. So you're saying, so your age range you're talking is 21 to 25? Is
Yeah,
that kind of
I think 25 is maybe too high. I would go as the top 24, like you said, 21 to 24, to
so,
where you're actually looking to get married, to where you're married by 25, like at the
okay?
latest. Like,
I
you're
was
actually,
thinking
you want to have that time of even being engaged.
I was thinking
so,
25 to 29. Hmm.
Yeah,
so
that's
that,
too late. I mean, to be
You
honest,
think
because
it's too late? Okay.
your mind frame is different. Your mind frame's already on, like, during that time you're like, all right, I'm ready for this. I want to do this, this, and this. And then even so, you're kind of stuck in your ways so much that you're
Okay.
less receptive to a man and being able to merge your life with him. By that time, you've lived on your own for a good amount of time, where you like things where you like things. And so you're less receptive to if a man tells you, oh, well, I like this a little bit like this. You're more like, no, I've been doing this for this long. My way is just fine. You know what I'm saying? It's a little less easy to blend realities with a mind that's so what you can't teach an old dog new tricks.
Right.
So
That's
you
true.
don't
And
you
that in women,
you
our brains process and receive at an earlier age. We stop developing our brains at like I think it was 14
With the growth, your brain
growth.
fully growth is fully at full growth at 14 for women.
Right, at 14 for women. So if you're thinking about that being the disciplines that she's learned naturally within her mind, of the habits and behaviors that she has
okay.
taken on, if that's
Okay.
already set in stone by that age, and then you're adding in immersing yourself into the life environment. You're taking in new perspectives and realities, and hopefully that's what a lot of it you learn through college. You have come to understand yourself, at least what you value out of life as a woman. That's what a lot of women, they're like, oh, I don't know, I want to get the time to know myself. Well, it don't take you too long to know yourself if you're actively looking to know yourself. You have to be deliberate and intentional. If that time is going to be for that, then also utilize it for a time to meet men that are of a caliber of where they would be good husbands. That in particular is that's the biggest opportunity for you to reach and connect a large amount of men at one time. Because after you have left the college scene, the only other place is work. And if you don't want to date with anybody within your job of where you're at, you're less likely to meet that partner, that spouse, because you're not going out too much. You're working, you done settled into your day-to-day life. You're not introduced to all the men that you could possibly be a wife to. And so you got to take advantage of those optimal times for you to set yourself up for the best results. And that's really what it's about.
Let me ask a question about that. But go ahead, Jay. I got some questions about this.
my question then is like, so just based on what you both just said, and we all seem to have come to a consensus on. For women, it seems to be 21 to 25, and for men, it seems to be 32 to 35, right? So, like that, the age ranges don't necessarily match up.
That's where I was.
So how per se do you say, like, because I don't know about y'all, but 21 to 25, I wasn't necessarily.
That's I was gonna add to that. Okay, this is my opinion, right? 21 to 29, right, is what you're saying, right? As far as a woman should get married. 21, I'm sorry, 21 to 25. A man, so do you agree a man 32 to 35?
Yes. Yeah. And then because of that shape, if I can take this, because as a woman in particular, when you're choosing to be a wife, you have one or two options. One, you're going to get married with a man who's younger, and that is that homogamous relationship that a lot of women love to fantasize about, because you're getting that younger partner, that spouse, that younger guy that looks good, that has that swag, that has that, all of that, because y'all are of the same age. That is ideally, if you want to be married and then be building a life with a man, that is your ideal age to get with him when he is, in that environment. So if you're at that age, if you want to do that struggle up, exactly. But if you are wanting to be married and have that soft life, like a lot of women nowadays are idolizing, they don't want to have to contribute to a man being a man. That's where a lot of our culture has come from. They don't want to do the work for that. Well, okay, if that is the case, then if you want a man who is all together, ready for you to go, and you're willing to compete with the other women amongst the finish line, waiting for this man who is all put together, that age is going to be within 32 and whatever, 32, 35 or higher, whatever how high you want to go. That's the reality of the situation that women have to deal with and face. And I recognize that at a young age. Like, okay, let me see. If you're willing to bet on potential, and you're good at your discernment, and you're able to be comfortable in doing and taking that bet, then go for it, do that. But if you're not willing to do that, and you want that man to give you that prenup, and you're willing to sign up quickly, right along the line and fall into line, then sure, he's going to have to be an older man, because that younger man is not going to be able to do that. But I believe that's it. Mm-hmm.
Okay, Rob, let me ask you a question, Rob, because I really want to diagnose this, right? Because I don't want this to turn into controversial or anything like that. But let me ask you a question, Rob. Because I think this is a good topic. I'm not trying to sway anybody's opinion. But let me ask you a question, Rob. The time you married your wife, right, D, at the age between 21 and 25, right? Her learning to be a wife, her understanding how to be a wife at that age, did you see that as being rare?
I did not.
You did not?
No, I didn't think. To be honest with you, I didn't think much of it. To be honest with you,
I
found that out now. That's how rare it is.
Okay. That it is right there. So you find that out that it's rare now. So do you think women between the ages of 21 and 25 aren't taking the same steps your wife did?
Of course.
Right.
Yeah, of course.
You
No,
said- you
That's
said-
why we created wifeconomics.com.
yeah, that's right.
So you think they are, or they're you think they
No,
are, or they're
you said
not?
they're not.
No,
They're
they're
not.
not.
They're
No,
not.
they're not.
So that
No.
that brings me to my point. So you're saying women should get married at the age between 21 and 25, right?
Mhm.
Rob thinks that women between 21 and 25 aren't learning to get married
No,
or
not
to
at
be a
all.
wife.
So that seems
No,
like
no.
there's a
There's
whole
a there's
lot
a
of
do you see the so I'm like, that's why I said I think 25 to 29. And I wanted to ask this, right? At the age of 21 to 25, right? You graduate from college. And this is my opinion. I think women have a choice. They either can learn to be in a relationship or they can learn how to establish a career. Right. And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, are women now taking more of a path to I'm gonna build a career, I'm gonna take care of myself, I'm gonna learn how to provide, and when the time is right, as time goes by, I'll learn how to be a wife.
Yeah,
Do you
but
think
that, like y'all said, that doesn't merge. It doesn't, that's not the reality. You have one or two choices. And if you make that choice, you have to accept all the consequences that come with that choice. So, regardless of if you miss that window of opportunity or not, you and everything within you is going to feel all the ramifications for not doing things in an optimal time. Like, that's just, I mean, that's why,
I agree. I
yeah.
agree. But I think Miss D, the way you learn to be a wife at the age between 21 and 25 is very rare. It's
It
very
is.
rare. It's
It
very
is.
rare. I don't think women between 21 and 25 are learning how to be a wife. They're
But,
not.
They're not.
but this is the thing. They used to.
Yeah.
If you look at
They
the
used
ages
to.
of,
I agree.
yeah,
I agree.
right.
But
If
that
they,
came from their mothers.
I want to. So,
No,
Rob, what were
yeah,
you?
yes and no.
right.
Yes
That
and
came
no. I
from
think it was more culturally accepted. It was more what was pushed out of a woman wanting to be a wife. See, now what we're seeing more than ever is that desire to get that bag and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
reality of that is less than 6% of women actually make $100,000 and more to sustain them for a lifetime. And that is a huge number that is a reality. So you can hope and wish on a star all you want to of if you're really going to be able to live and sustain the rest of your life as a single woman or not. And the choices that you make in your young is going to decide whether or not that's harder for you. That is something that we have to let people know,
No,
because
yeah.
people aren't aware of the choices that they're making, and like, oh, they're selling me this dream that I can do all of this, but is this really actually something that's going to take place, or am I just wishing and hoping on a star that that time will come, when in reality you have a choice. If you're choosing to want to be a wife, then you have an optimal time where you should be doing that. Now, it's not to say that it's too late. There you certainly can be intentional, but that's where you have to really be deliberately intentional in wanting to learn how to be a wife and getting onto another man's a man's program and actually being, in that harmonious relationship with him. But unfortunately, what we're seeing is the result of a lot of people having to learn the hard way, and that's
Correct.
always been the case. Like, if you don't learn the hard way, then and have that experience for yourself, then sometimes it doesn't get you to course correct.
Right. And I wanted to add too that a lot of men who are marrying, they're not marrying their same age, they're not
Right.
marrying their peers.
Because they still want
A lot of
kids.
my friends who want to get married, they want to marry younger women and, like 25.
Okay.
My friends around 32, 30, in that 32, 35 range.
I think that's a good range. That 32
Right.
to 25 is a good range. But when you talk about 35, I mean 30, you're 35 and she's 22.
Well,
Right.
it depends on as well, as much as I see that women are learning to want to do that, though. Like, they're wanting to position themselves and seeing that more than ever, but it needs to be that opportunity for them to do so.
Right. And then
That is
also
very.
too,
I think that is
right.
very rare. That is rare because that's two different mindsets. Way two different mindsets.
Well, you see, and then also too having a younger wife. I mean, you can also teach her
Yeah.
what you
Yeah.
want as far as
Yeah.
your boundaries and then what you expect and all of that. But the caveat to that is also too the protection of the providership. I'm
Correct.
bringing all this money in, and you're talking about student loans. I can possibly help you pay those, or having that house. She's moving into my house.
I don't think
She's
you're getting
driving
that.
my
I
car.
don't think you're getting that from a woman at 22 years old nowadays. I just don't.
Well, no, that's the reason why the message needs to be out there.
Right.
Yeah.
The times
Okay.
change. You see, times change, so we need to change with the times, but people are not. We're still stuck
I
back
agree.
in the
Well, yeah,
2000s.
I think it's actually though a pendulum shift, and what is
Okay.
happening though, it's kind of shifting in a way to where women are realizing one, they don't like the whole aspect of
Working.
working, and they're like, wow, why did they sell us out to now? I realize that I do have to work the rest of my life, even if I want to have children, even if I want to do this. Like this isn't the life that I'm wanting. So what we're seeing now is those older women, they're understanding the ramifications of their choices, but these younger generations are
Mm,
watching and looking, and the
okay.
girls are
Okay.
seeing that, hey, I want to be a wife, so I need to make choices and decisions based off of the women who got what I'm looking to get, not the
Okay.
women who out here are living a life that I really don't want to live when I'm older.
So you're okay. That makes sense. So you're saying that the women between the ages of 21 and 25 are seeing the older women that chose the career and saying, "Hey, I don't want to have to depend on a career for all my life and not be able to have a family, be a wife." Okay. Okay.
Yeah. And
Okay.
the economy now more than ever is making that a harsh reality for people to face,
Yeah. Because
because
it's no longer be a
living
one
alone as a
income
single
household.
woman is expensive. Exactly.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
realize that I cannot do this alone. I need a man. I
Right.
need to have,
Yeah.
and I, unless you want a
Yeah.
sister wife or a
Let me
girlfriend.
let me let me throw this out there too. October
Okay.
1st is a very important date that's coming up.
Okay.
And if you all didn't know it, college loans are going to have to be paid.
Yes.
Mhm.
You're
Yes.
going to see a
Yeah.
whole lot of crazy things going on after October 1st, dealing with, a lot of women have a lot of college debt. And then also, too, if you haven't been paying it, that compounded interest.
Yeah.
And a lot of
Yep.
people have
Yep.
substituted their college loans for mortgages during
Yep.
COVID.
Yep.
So with that being said, you're going to see a lot of desperate people out here. That desperation to get married, you're going to see that. That's why reason one thing that I said was I'm predicting that more people are actually going to start getting married. They're
Mhm.
going to start realizing how hard this is by themselves, and then they're going to have to do something different. They're going to have to change
Okay.
this thing up because what they're currently doing and how much money they currently are making is not going to equal the same after October 1st.
But then
Oh, that's a good point. Go ahead, Jay.
here's a question for you then. I mean, you're saying that like women are starting to see the difference, but you also said that, you make a choice between becoming a career woman or becoming a wife. But, like you said, the economics of the situation, people aren't able to do this on their own anymore. So if you are making the decision to be a wife, that means your career is going to suffer,
That was
meaning
yeah.
you are
Yeah.
not going to be able to earn as much, meaning you won't be able to, like, the partnership, it won't be an equal partnership, so to speak. So ultimately, yes, as a man, I understand I'm going to have to provide. I'm not fighting anybody on that. I'm not arguing
Yeah.
with anybody on that. But the amount of help I'm going to be able to get from a partner who has chosen I'm just going to be a wife is markedly different from a woman who has said, you know what, I want to be a career woman, and
Well,
then
I
realizes, oh wait, let me switch this up. So
Well, I
how
would
do
have
you?
to disagree. Yeah, because that's not just being a wife though. Because as a wife, it is you have to be that helpmate
Okay,
and
that
actually
that was
understanding the role. So if you understand your role, right, as a wife, you're going to see that first. I'm not so obsessed with having to have this career, look this way, me do this thing. Instead, I'm more open to, well, what is the plan that my husband has? What are his work hours? If we're looking to have children, is there a way that I could work in a telework job around the time where I can, have my children at the same time, or be supportive to my husband, still be able to do the things he needs me to do, but be able to add a job into the equation? Because the focus has to be first, my dedication is to my husband and my family. And of course, how am I going to contribute? So, how am I going to work that into what it looks like alongside me being dedicated to my husband and my family? So, it's not like you're not doing anything, but it's more so your priorities are, how am I going to work this career, this job into the life of my family, not how am I going to work a family into a career, because that's a little less likely to work with when you have a man who has his own job and his own, you want him to be the leader. So you want him to create that vision vision and have that, hold that space for the family and what that structure looks like. But if you're already under a discipline and a structure of a job or career that's maybe very demanding, like a nurse or traveling nurse or an airline steward or something that requires you and your schedules not to be aligned, then yeah, it's much harder for you to get into that relationship. And then you're having to sacrifice relationships just so you can fit into a job. But that doesn't work that way, to be honest. So it's about priorities. What are you prioritizing first? And then figuring out how then I can make this work.
Right.
What do you say? Okay, so let's go there. What are you saying to women that are in those, like a lawyer, doctor, nurse, flight attendant that's traveling? I think in Jay's defense a little bit, something does sacrifice.
I mean, it's not even a defense, so to speak, like, because what she's saying is sort of what I was trying to get explicitly stated, because it's like eventually somebody's going to have to do that. I mean, like
Yeah.
Rob said a little bit earlier, if whether you as the man decide, like, you know what, I do want to be a house husband or whatever the case may be, somebody's going to have to make the decision to, you know what, this is what it's going to look like for us. Whether it's, oh, I'm gonna stay at home with the kids while you go out and be Superman or Superwoman or whoever you want to be. And like the main thing is like there has to be a plan. Going back to
Right.
the whole thing, there has to be intention.
Right.
And if people have different intentions, it's like, oh, hey, I'm here for family. It's like, oh, okay, but I'm here for career. Then those intentions may never align until somebody compromises, and that's essentially what I wanted to get to.
Right.
So I guess. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Rob. Go ahead.
No, yeah, as long as you compromise, that's fine, but you have to play to your strengths.
Yes.
So you
Yeah.
you got to play to your strengths in this economy. You playing that game, that economic money game. So if the dad makes only 55,000, he's a garbage man, and mom is, the nurse working to be a doctor, you might have to be that dad that stay at home. It's just those are just the cards that you got, but because the game here is money. So
That's
you
a
got to
tough
make
conversation too.
right.
That's a hard conversation to have as far as a man.
It is.
It's a very hard because that boosts the ego. It's like, oh man, especially if you, and not a really ego, but you want to bring that to the table.
But I mean,
right? That's a tough conversation.
But I
It
mean,
is.
I think one thing that I'm realizing, especially, I'm getting older, we all are. One thing I'm realizing is that, like, if we are playing that economic game at a certain point, within reason, at a certain point, you have to set your ego to the side and be like, look, this is what I need to do to make sure my family is provided for, my people are provided for, or I am provided for.
Yeah.
And let's be real, sometimes it sucks, and it will. But if, growing up, we never really see you never really see the days where your father was just sitting on his bed in the morning trying to figure out why he's doing this, and how hard it is to get up at 6 a.m. and get your butt to the car and drive into the office and do and break your neck
to provide for his family
for less than you think you're worth. Nobody ever has that conversation with you, but that's ultimately what it is to be a provider. It's not fun, but it goes with the job.
Right.
All right. So to clarify here, we'll start with D. The age you're saying for a woman to get married is 21 to 25.
You just wanna
I just want to.
I still stand on it.
I stand. No. I just want to clarify to make sure. So you're saying for women 21 to 25. What about for men?
Yeah, still the same. Within your 30s, some, if they're lucky, I know a lot of hardworking men. My husband wasn't quite in his 30s, but he was hardworking. He had his intentions. But
Okay.
30 usually is that time where you'll see men start to make that shift. So anytime after 30, and you have hit all those boxes of being able to at least continuously progress through life, and you know what you want your wife and her role to play, and you know you're ready for that, to bring in that vision, and you're committed to that. And yeah, certainly a woman during that time, if you're genuinely knowing and you're seeing like, hey, this is something that I want to be. I heard that call to want to be a wife at like 8 years old, and that was
Yeah.
within. So that was
Yeah.
that natural instinct. So I know it's not, that may seem because of society, oh, women are immature. I don't even really think that. I
I
think
don't
that
think that either.
all women, yeah, all women hear that calling, but all around us, it's like you're bombarded with all these other ideas of how you should be versus just allowing yourself to give in to what you just naturally want to be anyway and work towards that. So if women are no longer fearful of that and they're able to recognize like what is my optimum time, for sure it
Mhm.
would be 21 to 25 during that time,
Okay.
especially if you've gone through life and you know what you want out of life and this is what you're willing to do. I think if that's the safest bet also too, if you're wanting to be one of those women who own their own business or have that freedom to be able to work whatever job you want to do, it's a better time to take that investment time when you're younger to say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and get married, get that down pat, get into my family, maybe have a couple kids. And then when my kids, if you choose to send them to private school or public school, whatever it is, you have more free time to then go after that career that you want to go after, especially if you're able to work it into your regular duties and you don't choose to homeschool, whatever the case may be. Your options are more expanded if you do the core things first, which is getting your
Okay.
family and getting married. Your then options later are expanded versus if you've gone out in the world and you've gotten all these jobs and all this career, all this money, but your main thing that you want is that man and that family, and you're already, into the time where it's too late for you to have children. You're not really the men that you want to marry don't really want to marry
One.
you.
Mhm.
So then it's like you're more hit with more obstacles than opportunities, and that's
Okay.
not.
Rob, what about you? Men? 30. What are your age range for men?
Yeah, 32 to 35.
32 to
Um,
35. Okay. For what
yeah,
about women? What about women?
the same 25, 21 to 25.
21 to
Like my wife.
25.
Yep.
Okay. Me, men, I think it's tough. I think there's still a little bit of period between 30 and 32, a little immature. Because 30, I think we start to get into our prime a little bit. You have choices to make. So I think about 31 to 35 for men. Women, I think
You said 21 to 29, right?
no.
25 to 29.
D made some good points. I questioned some points. She made because she made some points to where the as far as potential of women not having children, potential of men not wanting them. I do think that does happen, but I do think I do think I think for me maybe I have to change it a little bit. 27. This is tough. Now I have to rethink because I am considering all her points. I think about 27 to no, I'll put it 25 to 29 because I
Okay.
do I do I because I think there's a period of women that graduate from college and they do have a choice to make whether to have a career or choose to be a wife, and sometimes doing that can something does sacrifice. So at first I said 27 to 31. Now that you've made those points, I think I'm gonna have to maybe come back to maybe 25 to 29.
Now, do you think those women were actually be willing to sacrifice at that age? Because again, you got to remember, a lot of women at that age, they're like, I waited this long. I want a man that come with this, and this, and he got to come with this, and this, because I deserve
uh
this, and I done worked myself up to this, and this.
the reason why I feel like the big part of it, I think I disagree a little bit between 21 and 25, 21 and 24 is because I think social media plays a part into it. I think women want to experience things when they're younger I think women want to
Now,
be
what
able to.
benefit is that, though? What are they experiencing that's benefiting them as a woman? Because what we perpetuate as what women need to experience is it's all about sexual promiscuity. That's what's being promoted to the younger generation. These 21
Correct.
and 25 year
Correct.
olds are being pushed the agenda of explore yourself, sexual liberation, have fun,
Yes.
do all, live
Yeah.
your life. Now, what benefit is that to a
It
21
plays
and
no
25 year
benefit.
old?
It plays no benefit. But at the
It
age of
does.
21, and I will say this, I don't think on both fronts, men and women, there isn't that kind of mentor to say, hey, at this age, right, you got two choices to make, right? This is the benefit of if you're choosing to be a wife, you're looking to build a marriage, you're looking to build a relationship, you're looking to grow a family, have a family. The benefits is this, right? But social media, society tells us, hey, don't get married that young, right? Experience, like you said, sexual experiences, go out and experience it, and that even those sexual experiences that can bring children out of wedlock, out of having
Right,
multiple baby
exactly. And
Exactly.
fathers,
that's the
out
risk.
of yeah,
I
and
risk
that is the risk. But I think that comes from not having proper mentorship. And the problem is that proper mentorship, they're encouraging and teaching our men and women to not get married that young. And for me,
yeah.
in my opinion, I feel like I've always had the notion that women do mature quicker than men, right? But I just feel like I don't know. From what I'm seeing, I think women 21 to 25, I think they're still trying to
I
I
think
think they're still being a little bit competitive. I think there's a
I,
Yeah,
competitive
but
nature.
and that's you have to bring an awareness to what's the other option. In a way, by you telling women that that's too young, you're perpetuating that narrative that they should wait. When in all actuality, at 21, you need to be exercising the option of figuring out if you want to be a wife. That's the only way we're going to bring about this change. We can't keep telling women, "Oh, just because it's out here social media and you're experiencing all of that." We have to teach women how to block out all of that and
Yeah.
recognize and listen to the inside of you of what you really feel is right. What is your because we mature at a much at a much younger age, we have that capability to sit back and think and figure out, is this what I want to really do? But the problem is we don't have enough of us telling us, yes, honey, at 21 years old, you need to be thinking about being a wife. You don't need
Yeah.
to be out here trying to exercise your options and explore those options because they could lead to some devastating results that are going to end up ruining the whole option of being married in the first
Right.
place. Why risk all
Yeah.
of that?
That's how we
I
got here.
on it. Jay, so men for you, what is a good appropriate age for men to get married?
appropriate age, I would honestly, I would, I'm gonna hit the middle ground between Rob and D. I think the the age range for men, if you are like Rob said, if you are intentional, I would
Mhm.
say the best age range for men would be between 25 and 35. Uh,
Men.
for
Wow.
men, I would say between 25 and
Wow. Wow.
because
Okay.
why?
That's a huge
Because
range. Okay.
it's a huge range, but it depends on intention. Because I
Okay.
know, like for instance, I went to my younger cousin's engagement this weekend, right?
Okay.
He's younger than me. He's several years younger than me. He's in his 20s.
Okay.
He is somebody who, like, I've watched this brother since he grew up. He has been intentional. He has been interested in, like, hey, I'm trying to build a career. I'm trying to be a husband at some point. He's been intentional about that. So that means he is on a path to where, like, hey, I have a good job and I'm going to grow into, like, my economic potential is only going to go up. He's
Okay.
in that place right now.
Okay.
So if he does get if he does end up with a wife, it's like, hey, we can grow together. Cool. You are going
Okay.
to watch me grow into this man who at 35 earns six figures, can pay for his own house, all of that sort of stuff.
Okay.
So he's in a spot where the struggle love isn't so much of a struggle. So
Okay.
those
Okay.
are the men I'm talking about from 20, like the younger men who I'm talking about.
Okay. What about women?
For women, I would say for women, I would say in the interest of like me, I think a big thing for me, we've talked about this on the show before, is the three C's: compatibility, chemistry, and connection. And I
Okay.
think it is easier to be compatible with somebody who is in your age range. So I'm gonna say within the
Ooh.
same age range,
What age
so
range? Which age range?
that 25 to 35 age.
25 to 35. Okay. So
Now,
you okay.
one thing I will say is that, and I've experienced this personally, I've seen that women who end up in their 30s without children tend to be in a rush to have children.
Hmm.
Okay.
So I would say if you are not concerned about children, then sure, go on ahead and get married later. But if you are interested in being a mother at some point, I would say your prime window will more than likely be between 25 and 29.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I'm going to,
I
like I
would say that also depends on how many children you're trying to have too.
that
Because
part
a
too.
Yeah,
lot of
that's true.
women, you want just one kid, you want two, three. How do you want to space them apart? Do y'all want them back to back to back to back? All of that
Yeah.
makes a play on your mental and your psyche. And I
And
think
that's
as women,
tough in
it's
your
important for
30s.
us to remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
tough in your 30s. Yeah. So we're gonna go right into our wrap it up session. As our audience knows, this is something that we give our guests a few minutes, 3 to 5 minutes, to give you guys jewels, kind of let them know what they have going on. So you guys have the floor.
So what we do is, our jewels. So we're known for, of course, our show Blueprint Family Jewels. So we give a lot of tips about dating and relationships. And one of the key things for a long, happy relationship is to make sure that your expectations are realistic, and then also your intentions are set forth for marriage early in the dating, while you're dating, and then also too, make sure you ask the right questions when you're dating. I'm not talking about what color is your favorite color. I'm not talking about your favorite type of car or your favorite food to eat. We're talking about these hardcore relationships. Like, we want to understand what are you willing to fit into your marriage vision of what that looks like. What roles are you willing to play in the relationship? Are you willing to, if you have to, help me advance in my career by being a helpmate to me and wanting to have children one day? Things like that, those type of relationships, we need to vet those relationships, and also to have our families vet the people that we are dating. We need to practice discernment as far as the type of people we allow into our lives. Are these people actually really good for us? Do they mean good by us? And is this somebody that's going to stick around um, after, what their intentions are? They're going to stick around for me when I'm not at my best. And also too, will you be there for them when they're not at their best as well? So
Yeah.
so those are the type of jewels that I would like to drop.
Yeah, and that's what we do often on our show. And in particular, like we were saying, this is really our community service to the community. And with the wifeconomics.com course, our 7 weeks and implementation program is going to hopefully move into a larger program where we're actually helping facilitating arranged marriages, to where women and men are able to come together and have that safe space to be able to build with each other, learn what you need to learn, and be able to grow within a marriage. I think 90%, believe it or not, about 90% of the world is within over 60% of the world is arranged marriages. 90% in particular within the country of India is like an arranged marriage. And within that culture in particular, the reason why their divorce rates are so low is actually at 6%. The reason why that is the case is because they have that supportive community around them, helping them, giving them the information that they need in order to make it through life together and a healthy, stable marriage. That is what our society is missing a lot of. And that is what we recognize to be able to offer and, allow God to work through us to be that channel for how people can create those satisfying relationships within their lives. And in particular, women offering that other side of that coin where you don't have to go out here and just, explore life until you
figure it out and hope life don't take advantage of you. You don't have to do that. You can know what you want out of life at a very early age, and you can choose to make the right choices and decisions that is going to set you up to get that result. That is what we have to be intentional about as women. What do we really want our lives to look at? Not just living in the moment, having the fun, and that whole YOLO. You don't think about things, just have fun and live for the moment. That really mentality doesn't help you sustain through having a long life
Right.
in a healthy way.
Right. And then also to the last thing is that after you all get married, have children, think of retirement.
Yeah.
Make that a goal, and how you all going to achieve, retiring with $2.5 million, because that's what it takes now in this day and age with the growing rate of inflation. That is something that we don't think about. Once people get married, they think of having children and then maybe getting a fund for their college, and then that's it. And aside for this inflation rate that's not seeming to go down, that's something that we also have to focus on as far as wanting to get married, and the benefit of working as a team together.
Yeah, and it's for the kids. And last thing I always like to throw in, at the end of the day, our generations coming up right now, they need to have families. They need to have good, solid communities so that they are able to be healthy adults within our world. A lot of what we see now is a lack of love, a lack
Neglect.
of neglect within the household, children raising themselves. They're allowing the internet and all these other sources raise them because they're not given a good positive example to see and actually be able to latch on to achieve for themselves. So this, more so about anything else, is about the next generations coming up, because believe it or not, that's who other people are focused on too, their kids. So yeah.
Great message from you guys, man. I first want to really appreciate you guys, taking the time out to being on the show with us today. Make sure you guys follow them on the Blueprint Family Jewels on Instagram and also YouTube. Their channel and show is on Monday through Friday
at 8:30.
at 8:30. Make sure you check them out. Very, very good people. Very good content, man. It's just learning a lot, especially on our front. Make sure you also follow the Let's Rap podcast on YouTube. We're pretty much on there every Fridays, every Mondays. Check us out. Definitely like, share, subscribe. Anything you want to add to that, Jay?
Just that I believe I apologize, I'm getting the date wrong, but we will also be appearing on Blueprint Family Jewels in September.
September 8th.
Yeah,
September
okay,
8th.
September
Yeah,
8th.
so make sure you guys look forward to that. Their live
And
show. Can't wait for that.
and I would also I'm part of that. So
Yeah, definitely. Really appreciate you guys again. Make sure you guys like, share, subscribe to Let's Rock Podcast, and also like, share, and subscribe the Blueprint Family Jewels. Follow them on Instagram and also on YouTube, y'all. We out. Peace.
Peace.